Silicon Valley Bank was just seized by U.S. regulators and the markets are panicking. This is Around the Blockchain. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button. We have three of the best guests you've ever seen in the entirety of mankind. We're going to get right into it. On the top left, we have, or bottom left, we have Tim Warren. Welcome back, Tim. Tim, how are you doing? Aren't you glad you're not doing TA for banking stocks?
Yeah, that's a very much a relief. I also just noticed, DZ, I usually wear a hat, but all three of you are wearing a hat, so I'm just going to keep it different today. No hat for me. I'm going to be the outlier like I normally am in my life. But thank you for having me on here.
All right. The only outliers I know is my forehead. All right. Also on today's episode, we have Crusader. You also catch him at Debate Crypto OG. Are you ready? I see you got the flak jacket. Did you have a deposit in that bank?
I'm always prepared, but no, I didn't. Thank God.
Okay, I thought you were going in there and fighting your way through the crowds there. I was going to say skip the velvet line. And then rounding it up, we have Cowboys of Crypto. Cowboys, have you ever been seen without your hat?
Nope, never. It's a myth. It's a legend, but I've been shooting steers, collecting tears, and ready to ride the lightning today.
All right, so you're basically the Mandalorian in his mask. I love to see it. All right, we're going to have a great episode. We're talking about SVB collapse, of course. We're going to talk on JP Morgan, talking with these banks, and the banks are now starting to fight back and call out against these regulators. I want to share, this is from FinTech, I believe, or no, sorry, TechCrunch. Silicon Valley Bank is being shut down today by regulators, and I'm about to bring you to the stock. Hopefully no one here in the chat had any exposure to this. But this 65% is essentially what you're going to see for, yes, 1 day there, the 1 month. They shut down trading. That's why you don't see anything on the 1 day. But on the 5 day, you could tell what the true story is. And on the year to date or the 1 year, it looks even worse. It just fell off of a cliff. So big collapse. A lot of money is tied into this. We're talking, this is a top 20 bank. I'm getting conflicting reports. Is this 16 or 18 in the nation? But we're not talking about a small local, this is FDIC. This is in Northern California. A lot of wineries are in this. A lot of Silicon Valley money is in this. A lot of the San Francisco tech people have tons of money in this. And if you had deposits under $250,000, guess what? FDIC insured. But depositors over that, now they are creating this long, convoluted system. Looks like it's going to be some sort of clawing back, trying to make a claim. Now, Tim, of course, this is very, very early, but what do you put the odds on the people with deposits over $250,000? Are they looking at 100% of their funds? Are they looking at 1%? Is this a Mt. Gox situation? Is going to take them a decade? How do you think, just your gut, this is going to play out?
If we were talking about a crypto bank, I'm going to go with 0%. But this is financial. This is fiat currency. This is the dollar. Notice the shift that we've even seen in narrative today since this information has come out. It once again is going to get a bailout because it's the banking system. I'm surprised we haven't heard anything from any of her social media devices from Senator Warren. Elizabeth Warren, she knew everything about crypto. She saw crypto crashing. I wonder if she saw this one crashing as well. And it's just not a convenient narrative because, if crypto is so terrible, why is fiat doing so bad? It might just be it's not crypto that's the problem. It might be the government and their policies that are the real problem. And guess what? I mean, we're going to talk more on this show. I know it. But if there's not a better poster for what cryptocurrency is meant to do and can fix, it is this story.
All right. Well, Crusader, I'm looking at some of the data here. This could be the second largest bank collapse in history. I think number one is a Washington bank. And I was looking at their assets at the end of December. They had over 200 billion in assets, and they had 175 billion in deposits. We're talking about a lot of money here, tons of money here. Do you think that the feds are going to step in and bail this bank out, similar to what we saw in 2008 when, Wells Fargo and these larger banks? Or are they going to step back and say, hey, this is part of the pain that we need for a soft landing?
Yeah, man, that's a tricky question, right? If it's an isolated event, just like this one bank, we might not see a bailout, but and they'll be using that as a as a warning sign for the banking system, of making sure that people are doing what they're supposed to. But if we do see contagion, like we're seeing the rumors on Twitter and we're seeing around the news, then if that starts to spread into other banking systems, and we all saw all the stocks for banks today were crashing pretty hard. So if we do see that spread, then we definitely see some bailouts happening, right? And that's when the money printers are going to get turned back on, and that's rumor is that's going to be great for crypto, right? Money printers back on, things are going to be making a massive pivot with the Federal Reserve, because that's the only way to save the economy from crashing if we hit this massive contagion. So if it's isolated, no, but if it spreads, then yes.
All right. Well, Cowboys of Crypto, Crusader, I'm keeping alliteration here. He just dropped the C word. Of course, I'm not talking about the vid. I'm not talking about that 4-letter word that I always hear you screaming. I'm talking about contagion. And one of the narratives of '08 was, hey, I'm government. I have to step in to stop the contagion. I got to stop the spread. I got to put my hand down and quit those dominoes from hitting into each other here. Is this going to be a contagion event, in your opinion? I mean, are there going to be more drawdowns? Our fractional reserve banking is at 0%. I mean, what do you think the tail end effects of this are going to be?
In middle school, I got pants down to my ankles. They took the boxers along with it. I dropped my water. It smashed a child's toe. I tripped over my own shorts, fell into another individual. Locker slammed on someone else's fingers. I hit over a backpack that spilled sweaty clothes and BO all over the floor. This is what's going to happen. It's a mess all the way around because someone got caught with their pants down. It's a contagion. One person got pantsed. Now everyone suffers. And here's what we have here. Silicon Valley Bank, 40 years into the industry, 15th largest bank in the world. There will be more pain ahead. There'll be more suffering ahead. If this is my personal opinion, right? Not financial advice. But this is, I think what you said is the second largest bank failure ever. This is a financial crisis, and this is how it works. Like the banks take customer deposits and they put those deposits into bonds or some kind of financial asset to get yield back. Well, when the Fed raises their interest rates, the value of those financial assets drops, right? Yield drop, return drops, and inside a Fed-induced recession. Now, these banking margins will get pressured to get squeezed, and that's when people start to get really nervous, right? These bank assets are now known as toxic assets here. And it's when the balance sheet flips, and when they're saying that they have $209 billion, they're lying. They're lying. They do owe $175 in bank deposits, but that's money that they owe to people who have invested or who have kept their money with them. Now, so what happens is people go to the bank and they say, I don't trust you no more. Okay? I don't trust you. And then you have people like these, I would say, bank influencers like Peter Thiel or Tribe Capital or any one of these guys going online telling their investors, thousands of investors with millions, if not billions of money, saying, hey, take your money out of Silicon Valley Bank. Take your money out of all these banks. And so what happens is you've got these influencers, we're not talking about one individual banker or someone going to someone like me going to a bank and withdrawing money. No, we're talking about huge, massive influencers who have a following and they're telling their whole community, withdraw your money out of the bank. This is a bank run. Now, what happens is the contagion occurs when First Republic, who's frozen for trading and down 21% today, PacWest, Capital, Revolt. And what happens is these guys out of the top 10 will start to drop. Now, the JP Morgan, Chase guys, the top 10, they're going to look at these banks and say, hey, Fed, bail them out so you don't have to bail us out because we know we're next. That's how contagion happens. So let's talk about the future, right? Terminal rates probably going to go up, 50-50 shot about if it's going to be a 50 basis point hike or a 25 basis point hike. Jobs report came out today, too strong. PCE in February was too hot. PPI was too bad. It's all coming to the wire here. I think there's more pain in the head. Silicon Valley Bank was caught with their pants down, and now watch as the mayhem proceeds.
All right. Well, you said the tip of the iceberg. This is a totally unrelated question. If you were on the Titanic, what part of the ship would you be on? Would you be shoveling coal? Would you be dancing with the Irishmen? Or would you be sticking your pinky out as you sip from a wine glass?
I'd be working on my jig, dancing with the Irishman with my pinky up in the air, celebrating the fall of the financial system.
All right, let us know in the comments, what would you be on the Titanic? Hopefully I wouldn't be George Costanza at the birthday party when the fire broke out in the kitchen. I would like to think I wouldn't be elbowing women and children out of the way. Of course not. Of course not. I would be chivalrous, of course. All right, well, let's talk about this just a little bit more. I wanted to share, this is, again, from, I think, TechCrunch here. They announced on Wednesday that they had to sell some U.S. treasuries. They had all these bonds. It might take 10 years to divest. They needed money now, so they had to sell it at a loss. And it was a significant loss, $1.8 billion of a loss there. Now, Tim Warren, that means someone got these treasuries at a significant discount. Someone is, if they wait till maturity, they're up a guaranteed $1.8 billion. Maybe not specifically, but what type of player do you think is winning in this strategy? Is it big banks? Is it even smarter money? Is it his adversary? I mean, is this maybe a silver lining that, hey, maybe there's actually winners coming out of the scenario as well?
I mean, there's someone who knows the game. There's someone who knows how the game is played, how the manipulators work, how this happens. Earlier Crusader said he thinks that if this is the only one, there's not going to be bailouts. But if there's more, maybe they bail out. Here's the reason why I think there will be bailouts. I think they're going to start it now. It's because of narratives. And somebody knows, and to be fair, a lot of people know this, but somebody specifically knew how this game was played. They knew the manipulation behind the scenes. They bought that stuff early, like you were talking about. But right now, the government's sitting in a very, very, very good spot right now. And the problem is money. But we've been tightening here recently. Right now, you have just watch over the last week, we go from having like a 70-something% chance that we're going to see 25 basis points to we get some hawkish narrative from Jerome Powell. We get the Silvergate Bank news, and all of a sudden this thing, they're just slingshots to the other side. Yesterday morning, 80% predicting 50 basis points. Well, now we have a bank in trouble, and now they're back to predicting 25. Why is that? Because this is not how money should be handled, but this is how fiat works. The minute someone gets in a monetary problem, we can just fix it by turning back on the printers, going back into easing. It doesn't look good for a financial bank like this to go down because the war isn't on the banking system. The war is on crypto. And the whole narrative to be spewed right now is crypto is bad. Crypto is bad. If you put your money in crypto, you'll lose all your money. Oh, crap. Wait, if you put your money in dollars, you'll lose all your... Don't let that happen. All right, put the printer back on. Let's fix this bank. Let's get out of this problem nice and easy because the war right now is not on banks. The war is on crypto. I think that someone knew that was the game. They kind of played the chess pieces before all of this. They knew stuff like this was happening, and they bet on this corruption. And sure enough, they're going to be winning very handsomely.
Well, you talked about betting on corruption. Well, the CEO was speaking yesterday, and he was hoping people would bet on him. Again, I just want to share this. He said in a call yesterday with venture clients that their assets are safe and that the stock sale was announced as an attempt to increase flexibility, strength, and profitability. He said, hey, we have ample liquidity with one exception. If everyone panics, and then there will be a challenge. Yet again, Crusader, we're seeing someone say, hey, everything's fine. Don't worry. Come in. The water's warm, and it's not because I'm peeing in it. Why do they keep lying to us? Are we getting to the point where we can never trust a CEO? And in your opinion, should that CEO have any litigation issues or legal blowback for potentially misleading investors?
I mean, should he? Yes. Would he? No. Right? We see these people lying in front of the committees in Congress all the time. Right? When you're on the captain of the Titanic and the ship just sinking, you don't tell people, hey, there's a hole in the ship. Everybody runs to safe boats. They tell them, it's okay. Relax. Everything's under control. No reason to panic. Keep the violins playing. Everybody keep doing their thing, right? So this is one example of many other examples that have happened before, right? Janet Yellen came out saying, hey, the financial system is stronger than ever. There's no problem with the banking system here. Well, what do you call a one of the largest banks? Just dropping out of thin air, out of nowhere. Right, and being the second largest collapse in banking American history. So it's not nothing, it's something, but they will always tell you that everything's okay. And those are the red flags that we need to look out for, right? We saw it, we've seen it in crypto, we've seen it in traditional finance, we've seen it in government, we've seen it everywhere. When authority figures come out and tell you, hey, relax, everything's cool, everything's perfect, that's when the red flags should be dinging off. Let me start doing some research. Let me start looking behind the scenes what's really happening here, because I don't think everything's okay. If everything was okay, they wouldn't have to come out here and reassure you that everything was okay. Something is happening, and people need to be aware of this and stop buying into these narratives that are fed to you by authority figures that every time you're told it's okay, let me just go back to, my being a mind slave, back on my TikTok, back on whatever it is that I was doing before, Instagram or whatever, and just not paying attention to the real things behind the scenes. People need to take action on their portfolios. They need to take action in their lives and make sure that they're not just buying narratives.
All right, good stuff there. All right, well, let's move on here. We're going to talk about JP Morgan, another article here. JP Morgan says Silvergate collapse will test the crypto industry. The researchers say that firms are running out of banking partners. And this, of course, comes after the collapse of Silvergate and Signature Bank now reducing their crypto exposure here. And I found this slightly interesting because I'm just looking back. I felt like I knew a lot about crypto, but I had never really heard of Silvergate until recently. I'd never heard of Signature Bank until recently. There's almost this secret world of banking partners behind the scenes with these fiat on-ramps, off-ramps. I'd never heard of the Silvergate Exchange Network. I didn't know what Coinbase did in the background there. But Cowboys of Crypto, I see this attack of all these lesser-known banks, and I want to go to you. One, you the only guest without a beard, so make sure you go follow his channel, folks. He's bucking the trend here, just like he bucks those bulls. And is there an end game here with these large banks? Do you think that Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Chase, are they the ones maybe potentially looking to be these fiat on-ramps? It's just maybe a long strategy that's going to take years to play out, and we're kind of maybe seeing the first moves?
A lion is not concerned with the opinion of a hyena, and the crypto community is not concerned with the opinions of big bank researchers. It's ridiculous that they would just attempt to say what the crypto industry is in danger of. It's ridiculous to say, to warn the crypto industry of the wolf in the henhouse when they're the wolf. Right now, the crypto community is filled with two types of people: gamblers and investors. And some people think that they're investing, but they're really gambling. And some people think that we're gambling, but we're really investing. And some of us do both. I move between both, admittedly. But a gambler just tries to predict if something will go up, but an investor sees the problem and gives money to the solution. And hopefully that solution is adopted and brings value to people. So this is what we have to talk about. We have to talk about the real problem, that big banks control everything. And because big banks have access to unlimited money from the biggest bank, the Federal Reserve. Okay, let's just remind ourselves of why crypto even exists in the first place. JP Morgan wants the Fed to bail out all these smaller banks to protect themselves because they know they're next. 2008 all over again. The problem is not that crypto is too dangerous. The problem is that the money has no backing. The problem is not that crypto is used by criminals, but that real criminals are in the banks and they enslave the world with their fiat money. It's not that we're gambling in crypto. It's that we need to turn the gamblers into investors and show them what the real problem is. The real problem is that our money is not backed by anything. In fact, it is controlled by wealthy individuals who want to control you and me. The solution is Bitcoin. The solution is to fix money. The bias is just getting out of hand. When I hear advice from big banks, the bias is just getting out of hand. Upton Sinclair said this: it's difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it. And big banks don't know what the problem is because their salaries depend on it.
Yeah, I love that Sinclair quote. I'll give you an extra point just for that one. I totally agree with everything you're saying here. Now, Tim, I want to talk about these treasuries and these long-term bonds and maybe why they're having issues and selling at losses. The bank sold a $1.8 billion loss just recently. You have a 10-year bond, let's just say it's $100. After 10 years, you might walk away with 130. Problem is, at 15 years, it should be worth, let's just say, $120. No one is wanting to buy these things for 120. They're wanting these steep discounts. And part of the reason is here is these interest rate hikes. You can see here has gone up by 4.5% in the past year. And these hikes make it challenging for banks to sell low interest, high quality bonds quickly. Now, that is essentially the crux of the issue here. You know, it's going to be 10 years to mature. If there's a bank run, you got to sell them at a loss, sometimes in the billions. If interest rates come down lower, do you think this problem will, I don't want to say magically disappear, but will most of these issues be ironed out where we don't have to worry about bank runs anymore?
I mean, you're always gonna have to worry about bank runs because when people want their money, they're gonna want their money. I think that again, we're seeing this whole stage thing play out. I was over on Kelly's channel the other day, which is Kelly's channel, the BitLab Academy, and Scott Melker was on there. Shout out to Scott Melker, great guy. And he discussed the concept that all news is just noise. And that's what I kind of was referring to in the last time I was talking, but they just want to play around with the emotions of people. Even all this game, look at the chess pieces that, if they play out correctly, are going to look beautiful for people. We just had Jerome Powell in front of Congress talking about interest rates, and he was getting grilled by Elizabeth Warren, who's not related to me whatsoever, even though I'll call her auntie for now. But he's getting grilled.
You look more
by
Indian,
her,
by the way.
You know what? Believe it or not, my great grandmother says I'm related to Pocahontas. So maybe Elizabeth and I, maybe we do have something in the bloodline that connects us. Either way, hopefully the disconnect is in our brain cells. Moving forward, she grills him on the emotional appeal that if he moves forward with this interest rate hike, that he's going to destroy the lives of these 2 million people who are going to lose their jobs. And while a lot of people with common sense are sitting here saying, yes, Elizabeth, that's what happens. But guess what? When you're looking at the economy, we're sitting at an all-time low of unemployment. To fix this mess that you guys in Washington created, we have to get stricter with money. Well, guess what? All this happened. There was millions of people who sided with Elizabeth Warren. And now that all this is playing out, is that not just a beautiful stage for her to say, hoorah, I was right. Look at this. And now I'm here to save you people. I'm going to protect you. Yes, these banks are closing down, but I'm the one that grilled Jerome Powell and made him change his mind about interest rates. I'm the one who's fighting for you. It's this whole entire manipulative thing. And when it comes to JP Morgan and the whole banking situation, JP Morgan has not been truthful about anything since the existence of their company. They do have a problem at the moment, and that is the curse of Jim Cramer with him being in support of them. But long term, I think that JP Morgan is part of the manipulative piece. I think that BlackRock is part of the manipulative piece. As we're seeing banks like Silvergate, I'm with you, DZ. I didn't know much about them either, but as they're going away and there's all these new questions coming into crypto, who is going to be the main liquidity bank in cryptocurrency? Watch JP Morgan continue to put out FUD articles like we know they do. We know Jamie Dimon is constantly saying, don't buy Bitcoin, don't buy Bitcoin, don't buy Bitcoin. But anyone who works at corporate for JP Morgan knows that JP Morgan is buying Bitcoin. Watch them swoop into this massive hole that Silvergate's going to be leaving. And JP Morgan and BlackRock, who's already partnered with Coinbase, and these other large banks take advantage, because you want to know what? They can print every single noise article they want about how crypto is terrible and it's going back to zero, but secretly they know it's the future and they're doing everything in their power to get the good players out of the space so that they can swoop in and have the narrative of being the hero, all the while they're trying to control it as much as possible. Got a news flash for you though. You cannot control Bitcoin. You cannot control the decentralized currencies. If you want to outlaw them, go for it. You might put them back just a step, but decentralization is something that's coming one way or the other. This is the fight stage. And this last thing I'll say, and I'll throw it back to you, but they used to, when it comes to Bitcoin, they used to just flat out ignore it. And then for a while there, they just laughed at it. That was that funny coin. We are in the fighting stage. They're going to use every weapon they have. But when you're in the fighting stage, that's when you know you have something real, and it's time to grab hold of it and ride it, not to run in fear the way they want you to.
I think you summed up well. You can't control Bitcoin, unless you're Craig Wright, of course. But Crusader, it definitely seems like they're attempting to control Bitcoin. Do you think that this is maybe part of a larger effort on, maybe from the top down to somewhat kill the crypto industry, similar to what we've seen with maybe gambling or what we've maybe seen with the marijuana industry in the past 10, 20 years?
Yeah, man. We've been talking about, Silvergate. We've been talking about these Signature Bank, all these banks just coming out of nowhere. I call it, banking fugazi. Banks come out of nowhere, and then out of nowhere they go away again, right? They just collapse out of nowhere. Why aren't real banks stepping up to the plate, right? It's because they want this narrative that crypto is dangerous, that crypto banks can't exist, that we need to come back to the traditional finance system, that, the crypto space is just not sustainable on its own without the help of the big players. That's why, Jamie Dimon comes out and talks about how Bitcoin is terrible. Yeah, just like Tim was saying, he's constantly buying Bitcoin. This has been proven over the years that he's been constantly buying, yet he's been fighting it the whole time. And that's part of what Tim was also saying about fighting against the cryptocurrency narrative, fighting against Bitcoin, is because they want control, but they want control in a manner where people don't realize that they're fighting for that control. They make it seem like they're coming to protect you. Right? They're always talking about customer safety, right? Well, where's the customer safety in what's happening now? Oh, wait, the customer safety is turning the money printer back on. That's the only reason why they're safe, is because they can just create more out of nothing, right? That's the only reason. But the threat is Bitcoin, because they can't create more. And then they don't have control anymore to keep you safe. And that's when people start to wake up against the narrative of fiat.
Well, let's actually, let's see what they're saying specifically. We have some senators, they're kind of fighting back against these governmental agencies. There was a joint letter by Jerome Powell, the FDIC chair, Marty Grunberg, and the Office of the Comptroller. And they said in a letter that I want to use a quote here. The issuing or holding as principal crypto assets is highly likely to be inconsistent with safe and sound banking practices. Cowboys of Crypto, I don't want to set you up too much. What do you feel about that sentence? Are they helping us with safe and sound banking practices by keeping us away from crypto?
Senators arguing on behalf of the crypto community about discrimination is like having my 90-pound girlfriend go to the big mean man for bullying me. It's embarrassing. We don't want four fishermen looking for attention. We don't need them to fight our own fights. We fight our own fights. Now, I don't know these individuals. I hope they're cool. Maybe I'm being harsh, but I don't trust politicians. I don't think they're capable of doing no good. So maybe this is something that is worthwhile. I doubt it though. So I think they can do some things right, no matter how few of them and how little they would do. I think this is the case of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We will start to see people try to take control of the crypto space. I think all politicians do everything for optics, so I think they're just trying to garner votes personally. I think regulation is a long-term play. Regulation will continue for just 100 years, like the regulation of the car industry and the driving industry, and it's continually going to be revised and regulated. I don't know who the winner is in all of this, that if it's these four individuals, if it's the banking, but it's not going to be us, for sure, because we have to totally get into DeFi. DeFi, decentralized finance, is the move.
All right. Well, I do want to share their names where we're talking about them. It's pretty funny names too. Bill Haggerty, Tom Tillis, Steve Daines, and Mike Crapo. And so these are the four, saying that, hey, they brought up Bernie Madoff. They brought up previous things and saying regulators should not be punishing an entire industry. Now, Tim, I think Cowboys brings up a good point. Just because someone is vocally supportive of cryptocurrency doesn't mean there isn't an ulterior motive. Are there any filters or any things that we should be looking out for when we see these politicians speak out favorably? I mean, what are some of the concerns that they could be potentially hiding from us?
Well, the first thing that we should learn, and not that I think that this is going to happen with any politician, but something that we should have learned back in 2021 is no one ever should be held on a pedestal as the hero of Bitcoin. That's what happened back in 2021 with Elon Musk. A lot of people attributed that parabolic run to Elon Musk, but of course, then he comes out and says, oh, I have some environmental concerns, I'm going to sell it. And it crashes the market. Lesson learned. Hopefully we never make that mistake again. So the first thing, do not hold any of these politicians. And to be fair, I like some of these politicians. Some of the things I've seen, I like it. Here's what I'll say. Politicians, if every single one of them was ridiculously corrupt and stupid, then it would be a very obvious system. While to many people watching this show, we all know that the government is corrupt, that they're swinging things behind the curtains that they'll never let us know. They have to have some good parties in there to keep people under the illusion that we still have some form of a democratic republic, that we actually are every single one of our voices is heard with equal value. That is the illusion that we have to keep up to let the powers that be continue to run the system. The thing is, though, is that we need to make sure any momentum that those politicians start, again, it's not about them being the heroes, but it's about us supporting. I mean, Cowboy put it there, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. In this situation, even if you don't agree with everything that person's doing, you need to make sure you vocalize your support for those types of bills. We've seen this happen before. I mean, it's not the first time in the planet that there's been a corrupt government systems, but there are revolutions that happen. And hopefully we don't have a bloody revolution. I don't think the world wants to see that. But Bitcoin absolutely could be a financial revolution. And revolutions are when the majority of the people, but have the minority of the voice, finally start speaking up against the minority that holds all the power. That's the situation we're sitting in right now, and we're watching this kind of unfold. Another reason why I think that we'll see these banks, traditional banks, bailed out, because if they go down, all of the arguments to the peasants and the FUD that gets put out that says, do not get into crypto, it's corrupted. Well, now these people will see, well, this US dollar is corrupted, cryptocurrency, everything's broken, and they actually start to listen to diverse opinions. We've got to kind of ride the backs of these politicians who are, at least at this point, on our side, but keep an eye on them. You don't want them to become these pinnacle heroes that we just blindly trust everything they say. They're meant to be supported and yet at the same time kept accountable, and that's the way politics should have been the whole time. And maybe we'll get back there at some point in the future.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point earlier, where you're saying you need to vocalize support. I tend to agree, even though we might have someone championing a cause, it doesn't mean you should stop vocalizing support. Don't just let Michael Saylor do everyone's job for us. And if you do want to vocalize your support, hit that like button right now. Every like moves Bitcoin up 1 penny. So if we get enough of them, maybe we'll break 30K by end of summer, possibly, maybe even into spring. All right, final question here. Now, I'm seeing a lot of hatred, almost is the word here, Crusader, against Bitcoin. It seems like most senators, most politicians kind of have at least a bad taste in their mouths. There's a handful of supporters, but by and large, Congress people, they just despise Bitcoin. What do you think the breakdown's going to be when they start talking about CBDCs a little more seriously? Are we going to see the same type of disdain, or is it going to be a sudden 180 and they all think it's just, hey, this is the way to revolutionize the future here?
Yeah, man, that's a great question, right? So I think that they're gonna have that 180, and they're gonna say, "Hey, CBDCs, right? Where to go? Programmable money? Wait, hold on. We can make so much more money on taxes. We can control finances of the people in our interest for the government way easier. Let's go for it, right?" I think that's gonna happen. I definitely think there's still gonna be champions, right? I think right now I heard about the South Dakota governor or something like that that vetoed a bill that was anti-Bitcoin and pro CBDCs. There are some fighters out there that are against the CBDC narrative in Congress right now. How long is that fight going to last? Are they going to gain more? Tim said it perfectly, right? We need to be keeping an eye on these politicians. Just because they come out pro Bitcoin doesn't mean that everything they're going to do and follow up on is golden, right? So we need to make sure that they're staying true to their words, right? As true as a politician can stay to their word when it comes to the Bitcoin narrative, to make sure that they're not just wanting to get votes and reelected because they're pro Bitcoin, but actually because they're supporting financial freedom and financial sovereignty for the individuals of the United States of Americans, right? So that being said, CBDCs are a narrative that are going to be coming here real soon. We saw Jerome Powell talking about it, saying that nothing to worry about. Once again, giving you the it's okay, don't worry. Payments are coming, but CBDCs is still a quite long way. Trying to keep people calm on that narrative because they know that people are very aware of the CBDCs and what that could lead to. So it's definitely a fight for Bitcoin. Like Tim said, once again, it's the fight of CBDCs, centralized versus decentralized, and only people that are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into it, spreading out the gospel of Bitcoin and decentralization are gonna make this fight a win for decentralization. If you're just sitting on the sidelines watching people, don't complain when CBDCs win and you go back into the slavery system that we've been in with the financial markets.
Hey, I just want to give an extra special treat to the people who stuck around this long. I'm going to ask everybody, hey, we just had a really red week. You can tell by the background behind me. We had Bitcoin down about 10% on the 7-day. Tim, besides Bitcoin, if you're going to buy the dip this weekend, what would you buy?
Yeah, good question. There's a couple different things. We were noticing, we talked about this morning on Investing Bros, that, did we mention on the show? I can't remember. But the shorts on Ethereum, it's weird. You would think that the shorts on Ethereum would be greater and more plentiful than the ones on Bitcoin. But at the moment, there's actually less on Ethereum. The other one that started off kind of bullish, and it's in a falling wedge pattern at the moment with a false breakout, but also keep an eye on XRP with all of these L's that Gary Gensler and the SEC has been taking. We've been waiting for multiple years now as the XRP FUD has continued for a breakout. But these L's that Gary keeps catching, maybe we're finally seeing that breakout. And some people think that XRP is going to make up for lost time. I don't think that's going to happen. But if we get that final lawsuit done and they win it, XRP could be one of the leaders just because it will escape all the FUD that has weighed it down for years.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, all that KuCoin FUD, everything. Crusader, besides Bitcoin, what are you buying on the dip?
ADA, man, always ADA, all about decentralization, right? We're talking about altcoins. ADA's where I'm at.
All right, Cardano, good choice there. Actually, I did the opposite. I traded in some Cardano for Zed stablecoin, but then I staked it, everybody, for some Mina or MinSwap. Cowboys of Crypto. I feel bad saying that even. What are you buying besides Bitcoin on this dip?
If it's not Bitcoin on this dip, there is more dip to come. I am buying stablecoin, USDC.
All right.
Okay,
that's both of us.
There is more dip to come. This falling wedge, whatever happens, it's a pants down type of scenario, and we are all in trouble. This is my personal belief, but I see more trouble ahead in the next 6 months. So stablecoin.
Yeah, I
Careful
did the
buying
same
that
thing.
CBDC, man.
Yeah, right. That's hey, careful buying it from Hubie Marketplace. But that is all we have time for today. Looks like it was a close one. Tim Warren, I feel Cowboys maybe was cheated. He was only asked one question first round. But Tim, you ended up taking it away with an asterisk. Tim, feel free, leave us with some parting thoughts.
You know, I talked a lot today about the corruption there. And I just want to remind every single person. In the past, when governments are corrupt, they wanted to make sure the education of the people were low so they can control them. Learn from this. Right now, during this dip, while we are down, while we are bleeding in the red, continue to educate yourself on crypto, on trading, on everything. Tune out the noise and the FUD. Educate yourself. That is the biggest payoff you can have. And watch next bull run make you millions.
All right, go to the links in the description. Follow these channels. Hit those like buttons. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Have a great weekend.